All right, the planning and zoning meeting for July 18th, 2018 will now come to order. Please stand with us for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Can we have roll call, please?
Chairman Williams,
Here.
Vice Chairman Shavir, Secretary Chambers, Member Faison, Member Baker,
Here.
Member Ritchie,
Here.
Member Noel Copeland,
Here.
School Board Member Hare.
Here.
Okay, and we have quorum. And I did know that you talked to Vice Chairman Shavir, and he would not be here tonight, so I knew that. He actually called me. Next is approval of minutes for July 20th, 2018. Have a motion?
I'm make a motion to approve the minutes.
Okay, is there a second?
I'll second.
All in favor say aye. Aye. All persons who anticipate speaking on any public hearing item must first fill out the oath card contained on the agenda item and sign the oath contained thereon. These cards are located on the table near the entrance to the council chamber or may be obtained from the recording secretary. This meeting will be conducted in accordance to procedures adopted in Resolution 24-1997. Those speaking in favor of a request will be heard first, those opposed will be heard second, and those who wish to make a public comment on an item will speak third. The applicant may make a brief rebuttal if necessary. Those speaking in for requests will be heard. Sorry, I'm going in my memory and here I'm losing my place. The applicant may make a brief rebuttal if necessary. A representative from either side, for or against, may cross-examine a witness. Anyone who speaks is considered a witness. If you have photographs, sketches, or documents you desire the commission to consider, they must be submitted in evidence and will be retained by the city. Please submit such exhibits to the recording secretary. Staff, has all items been properly advertised?
Yes, they have.
And has anybody on the commission had the opportunity to speak to anybody in the public about the items coming before us or visited the sites coming before us? No? All right, with that, we can go to the first item.
I just wanted to clarify that item 9A, the right-of-way number 1-2018, the vacation request, staff and the applicant have been in discussion, and we were requesting that that be tabled until September 5th. And so that's the requested action on that at this point.
Oh, I thought from the email the applicant moved to, I didn't think we were having I thought this was
They need to make a
being moved and it was just moved, not that we need to move it.
This item was advertised on the agenda, and it was discussed at the last council meeting. Because it's on your agenda and the applicant and the city have mutually agreed to continue this item, we request, as staff has indicated, that this board continue the item until September 5th, and at that time you'll hear the item.
What I'm saying is that you're taking it off the agenda item. We don't have to make a table. We don't have to table this. That's what I'm asking.
I would request a motion on this.
Okay. Is there?
Table. Thank you. Excuse my voice, I'm losing my voice. Table item 9A on tonight's agenda.
Okay, can we take?
I'm sorry, it would be requested that it's tabled until the September 5th agenda.
Table until the September 5th agenda.
Okay. So can we take a roll call on this?
Member Baker,
Yes.
Member Ritchie,
Yes.
Member Noel Copeland,
Yes.
Chairman Williams.
Yes. Okay.
Thank you. The next item, item 9B, starts on page 37 of your packet. And this is for comprehensive plan amendment number 2-2018. This is a request it's a comprehensive plan amendment and associated plan development rezoning. And so I will be reading from the staff report that begins on page 39. The applicant, on behalf of the owner, is requesting a comprehensive plan amendment to change the city's future land use map and rezone approximately 81.39 acres of vacant land located west of Park Avenue, north of Country Club Drive. The purposes of this amendment is to make the property feasible for development and to minimize wetland impacts by utilizing smaller lots that are approximately 50 feet in width. The request proposes to amend the existing conservation future land use to the low-density residential future land use designation and rezone the property from single-family medium-density R1B and open space and recreation zoning to a new planned development zoning district with a master plan for the purposes of constructing a new residential subdivision. Let's see. So the request, the proposed PD is utilizing the conservation subdivision design standard, which are established in Chapter 33 of the city's land development regulations. And in general, the conservation subdivision is a development option that was designed to be used for properties that have environmentally sensitive areas on them. They require a minimum of 50% of the land area to be set aside and not disturbed in order to, and then the remainder of the property can be utilized to accommodate development. And so the applicant has chosen to utilize this development typology, and through this is proposing to conserve approximately 50 acres of open space and wetlands as part of this development proposal. The lots are proposed to be, as I said, approximately 50 feet in width. The minimum lot size is approximately 5,000 square feet. The setbacks are similar to other zoning districts that the city has: a 25-foot front yard setback, a 20-foot rear yard setback, and 5-foot side yard setbacks. The maximum building coverage is proposed at 45% of the lot, and the maximum lot coverage, which would be the total impervious, such as concrete, anything impervious, concrete driveways, sidewalks, that sort of thing, at 65% of the lot area. And let's see. So okay, so as I mentioned, the property totals approximately 81.39 acres. Based on the conservation subdivision design, a minimum of 40.69 acres would be required to be preserved as part of this development. And based on the proposed master plan, there are approximately 48.98 acres of total open space within the proposed development. These open spaces are comprised of the wetland areas, which were identified through a wetland survey that was submitted in your agenda on page 68. And then the other portions of the open space include a playground and a dog walk or nature path that goes through around some of the development area and then also through some of the uplands on the property that are near Park Avenue. There is one small deviation from the land development regulations, which is permissible through the planned development zoning district. The cul-de-sac that you see kind of in the lower left-hand corner of the master plan that is on page 51, there's a cul-de-sac there that is slightly over 500 feet, which the code establishes a maximum of 500 feet for cul-de-sacs. In this case, staff is not opposed to allowing a slightly longer cul-de-sac because the property is taking advantage of the conservation subdivision standards. It's understood that sometimes in order to use the available property that is not environmentally sensitive, that deviations from the code, especially in terms of cul-de-sac length, may need to be exceeded. Let's see. And so part of this request is to remove existing conservation land use from the property, and the reason that that is being pursued in this case is because as part of the development of the property, the wetlands which have been verified or delineated based on the wetlands survey would be dedicated over into a conservation easement, and that is consistent with the comprehensive plan, and the comprehensive plan establishes that option to protect those wetlands through a conservation easement rather than through a conservation land use designation. That was a change that was recently executed in the comprehensive plan and the land development regulations, and the intent of that was to accommodate the development of some of these properties that do have environmentally sensitive lands on them without requiring to come back and possibly amend the conservation land use as the development occurs. And so based on that, staff does not object to the change. With that, I will try and answer any questions. I believe the applicant is here as well, if you would like to hear from them.
Okay. Let's start with opening this up to the public. Do we have cards on this item?
Yes, I have 5 cards.
Okay.
Kevin Cunningham,
Mr. Cunningham?
If I may interrupt, Mr. Chairman, would you like to have the applicant speak before the public comment, or would you like to hear public comment before the applicant?
Well, normally, we always have the applicant first.
We do.
So you're not the applicant? No. Oh, yeah, actually, so, can we have the applicant first? Oh, you don't have a card for the applicant? Or you're the applicant? Yes. If you'd state your name, but before you leave, please fill out a card. Okay. And,
Make sure you touch that button so your microphone's on. Thank you.
Is
And
red's
you-
on? Okay.
all right.
Sorry, it's
So
been
you'd state your name?
Bruce Moya, president of MBV Engineering, representing the applicant. It's been a long time since I've been here. I am lived here my whole life, but I don't get up to Titusville that often. Our office is in Melbourne. We've been doing engineering. I've been doing personal engineering in this county for over 35 years. This, as staff eloquently described the project, we've met with them. We went over this project to really determine what's the best way to possibly develop this property. The property right now is owned by the bank. It's a piece of property that was taken back. It's been sitting vacant for a long time. The bank really wants to market it, and they want to be able to, get their money back for having to take it back in when the recession was here and they took property back. So they're basically marketing it and trying to get the best value out of it. So what we did is by using the conservation subdivision ordinance, we've worked all the development into the uplands. Not a whole lot. Out of 81 acres of property, we're saving over 50 acres of property that we're not touching. The only really wetland impact we're proposing is just an access road to get from one upland side to the other. Out of I think it's a allowable density of allowed at 5.8 units per acre. We're only proposing 1.5. So we're really keeping this low density. We're creating buffers along all the perimeters so that we don't have any, very minimum impact to the abutting properties. We are proposing a connection to the west because we understand that there's another proposed subdivision going to the west of us. So we will interconnect with them in order to improve traffic flow in the area for both developments. We'll be proposing our own recreation tracks, dog walks and nature trails throughout the wetland areas. And so we feel that it's a great project. It's very low intensity. It's on a very large piece of property, and there's very, very minimum impact. So I'm here to answer any other questions that you might have. Obviously, there's some concerned neighbors in here, and we'd love to answer their questions as well. So I'll come back and hopefully address any issues that they have. So if you have any questions for me.
I don't see any. I have a few, though. One of them is on the cul-de-sac. So do you believe that if, now, the code stipulates it to be no more than 500 feet, and quite honestly, that is an extreme amount from what the previous code said.
What was the previous code?
I'd have to defer to that. 500 is it went from, I don't know, 200-300 to
Wow.
500. I mean, there was a big difference. Woody would know.
Yeah.
In the back, but I don't think you're at the city anymore.
That's unusual. And down in the south part of the county, in
So-
Melbourne, West Melbourne, it's like 1,500 feet. So
The
that's-
issue, and I didn't see this, generally, the fire department, and so I want to keep you here for a minute, but the fire department usually signs off on these.
Yeah, the fire, as part of the review process, this is sent to the fire department. Typically, they don't object to a cul-de-sac so long as they have sufficient room at the end to turn around their equipment. In this case, the radius appears to be sufficient to accomplish that. The fire department did not object to the proposed master plan.
Okay. So part of the reason why I'm asking that, as well as with the cul-de-sac, was 2 access points. And so you're actually looking at an access point at a later date, correct?
Yes, sir.
Not adjoining something else to the west, and then this being the only entrance, and then you have a,
The entrance on Park.
yeah, you have an entrance on Park, but you said that,
Right. And then going to the west, we would tie into the neighboring subdivision that's proposed for the future to the west.
right. Now, where's the entrance to that? And I don't want to jump ahead, but my
Right.
point is that,
The entrance to the subdivision to the west would be on Knox McCrae
Okay.
Boulevard.
so then that solves some of that.
Thank you.
The other part of that is you were saying that you have 1.5 units per acre is what you're proposing. And
Yes.
so from the paperwork, it looked like almost a 50-50 split of uplands to wetlands, almost. It was like 40 to 46, or maybe 46 upland, 40 wetland. I can't remember. It's been several days since I read this.
There are additional upland areas that are not being disturbed as part of this so the wetlands may only be approximately about that 50-50 split, but there are some additional upland areas such as there's near Park Avenue, there's an area of uplands that won't be developed on. There'll be a
Yeah,
walking
I saw
trail
the- I saw the
installed through.
split there.
So there are some upland areas that are not being disturbed as part of the development that aren't necessarily wetlands.
Okay, so, and then part of this, you're looking at wetland mitigation for the roadway, access way? Is that really what you were looking at mitigating?
Yes, we would mitigate that to meet the state standards.
And then as far as the gopher tortoises, that they said that they're on site, did they do a count on those, and is that? But they said no presence of scrub jay, no, right, nothing else but turtles, I'm sorry.
Tortoises. Go for
I know,
tortoises.
I know. So, and then I guess my last question is, when I'm reading the report on this, it was talking about that the wetland itself is poor, that it was, I'm trying to remember what the word that they used, it was drained, it looked like a man-made change. I can't remember the terminology that he used. And so what I'm wanting to understand is how viable is this wetland? Is this something that I understand it needs to be protected, but my point is that, is it cut off? The drainage, it said, I wish I could go to this report here. The report was basically saying that it was a dried wetland. The soil types could be either or, but do you remember what I'm talking about? Page 68? One more. All right, so.
That's where the report starts. I was just reading from page 70, down near the bottom, just above where it says community types. Now, keep in mind, this was not a report that was generated by city staff. This was supported with the application. It says that we suspect that drainage improvements near the site, the ditch and borrow pit, have sufficiently de-watered the western part of the property over time so that whether or not these areas once contained hydraulic soils circa 1974, they currently do not.
Okay.
I don't know if that's what you were referring to, but that's what I...
Well, it was farther down in there, but that basically tells why. And then I saw the pit on the, I guess it'd be west side. Is it the west?
Yeah, there is a lake to the west, yeah.
So I'm just trying to understand the true wetland impact on this. If it's a viable wetland, you know, if the impact was actually going to be major. Even on the upland portion will affect the lower portion wetland. So I'm just trying to ascertain of the impact. So,
Yeah, because even if we, fill in to cross, we would still have to continue the flow between the wetlands, so there would be like pipes that would continue whatever flow's going on, that
But it-
wouldn't be blocking that, so they would still function.
The report, but what I'm saying is the report makes it sound like there's not really water there, and I can't tell.
Yeah, I'm sure there's more, because it does extend off-site and,
Okay.
but, you know, that's where we get into the design of this, and we'd be coordinating with the Water Management District, because if they're saying that there has to be connectivity, we would continue that. We wouldn't block the flow, we wouldn't like build a dam, which I think looks
Right.
like, and I don't know what happens over at Harrison, but it looks like Harrison cut it off. And whether there's a connection there to continue it going north or not, I don't know. But if you look at the aerial, you can see that Harrison clearly cut that wetland in half. There's more of it to the north. Whether that connects or not, I don't know. Harrison's been there for a long time. I don't know what the rules were back then. You know, what's happening there. And obviously, you know, whatever's happening there now, we can't make it any worse. We can't just dump more water into it. We have to meet all those stormwater regulations. And I imagine what we would probably do, and this is really getting farther on down the line, is we would, in order to get the impact fee credit, or impact credits for mitigating that wetland, is we would enhance it some way, probably get, I'm sure it's full of invasives, we would probably go in there and clear it out, you know, get rid of Brazilian peppers and whatever invasive species are in there, and make it more of a viable wetland than probably what condition it's in now. And I didn't see the actual language, but I imagine it's probably fairly low quality and not a high quality wetland.
Well, that's what your report was saying, that's what they were saying, it would be a reduced impact on the mitigation on that, and it was 84,000 an acre was the estimate, I think, is what I saw. But anyway, I have a question for you. Member Ritchie.
Excuse my voice. Each lot is going to be approximately 2/3 of an acre, correct?
There would be like 50 by 120, which is pretty much what
Yeah.
is the
said
market
one and
is.
a half, so- okay,
asking for these days.
The uplands that aren't going to be used, can they come back in the future and possibly develop that?
Not without coming back for another approval from this board and
Right,
the city
but
council.
they can come back.
Correct. If in the future they chose to try and utilize some of those additional uplands, they would have to go basically through the same process they're going through now, which would be an amendment to the plan development process. They would have to amend the ordinance and also the master plan that you see in front of you to illustrate what those changes would entail.
But if you're putting in a conservation easement, you're saying that the uplands are not being put in conservation easement that she's referring to?
They could be included as part of that. At a minimum, our code and comprehensive plan requires that the wetlands be put in a conservation easement, but it would be up to the
You're
to the
saying what's being
developer.
proposed tonight, it looks like that's the case.
What is the
So-
case? Sorry.
The easement on the upland for the portion that you're not using.
Yeah, and that would happen at final plat. That would be
Yes.
put into conservation.
Yes.
Absolutely.
And the idea behind the easement is it is more stringent than zoning.
Correct. That would, it's typically with the St. Johns River Water Management District, and those easements are very difficult to get removed once they are put in place.
Yes.
Right, so that's why, I'm just tagging on to what you're saying is, it is supposed to be more difficult, was my understanding. What's proposed to us tonight is included in that, I thought. Right?
I would defer to the applicant on that. We haven't received a legal description necessarily for that conservation easement.
Well, okay.
Like I said, at a minimum, the wetlands would be required. However, if the developer chooses to include the uplands in that as well,
I guess it's
that's their
just
decision.
The language, I guess, so I was looking at the maps and I was thinking that, you're right. I mean, it really, from my, I can't make the motion anyway, but, I think that my personal take on that is that might be an issue. I see you did exclude that, so my apologies.
Okay, yeah, and we would have no objection to, when we do the plating, that
Sure.
we would propose to put those open space areas into conservation.
Okay. So I wanted to be clear, and so I think we're good, but any more questions of the applicant? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
And the reason why I was talking to Member Ritchie about the uplands on that is I thought in the past to put a motion for them to not use a piece of property could be a burden. I don't know, it might be an issue, but if they're agreeable to it, but.
And through the PD process, we have some flexibility in terms of, you know, at least asking for those sorts of items. And I think that because it's already proposed to be part of the open space portion of that master plan, so long as the applicant is agreeable to it, if the commission desires, they could include that as part of the recommendation.
I'm just, I mean, they have a dog walk there, and that's, is it viable to do that? I just recall in past, we're not even close to even voting on this, but I'm just saying in past items that were before us, it was an issue about asking for too much.
I think that as Trevor has stated, in this scenario, because there is a question and it is unclear whether those uplands are included in that conservation easement, it could be a concession of the applicant and throughout the course of the discussion here to identify where and what will happen to it. And if the applicant has conceded that he intends to include it in that conservation easement, then I think that's a non-issue at this point. Before, the question was whether or not it is included, and if he's answered that it is, then I'm satisfied that it is acceptable.
And my last question is to staff real quick too, and is about open space and utilizing wetlands as that requirement.
So in this case, the conservation subdivision was designed to protect environmentally sensitive areas. And so in this case, the wetlands that are there, we felt comfortable including those as part of that open space. Typically in just a standard PD, that is not the case because we want the open space to be.
So under PD, you can do that. Under a different type of development, you wouldn't be able to?
Under a conservation subdivision, you can count those wetland areas and those sorts of things as part of the required open space. However, under a typical PD that just requires 35% open space, in that case, the 35% open space needs to be usable. It needs to be an amenity of the community. So in this case, there's a little bit of a mix of both. There's wetlands plus some open space areas that will be usable by the public on the uplands.
Yeah, it just seemed odd that the wetlands were included, but I understand now. So, okay, so we will continue on. I guess Mr. Cunningham, you'd come up.
Good evening. I live in Central Park Estates, immediately to the east of this planned development. My concerns are predominantly the size of the lots and the size of the homes, the minimum requirements that they're asking for. Commissioner, you stated that the lots might be 1/3 of an acre. Okay, what they're proposing is 5,000 square foot for a lot. That comes up to a 0.113 of an acre. That's less than 1/6 of an acre. The zoning for R1B, which is the subdivisions to the north, to the south, and to the east, all have a 75-foot by wide by 100-foot deep minimum, giving you 7,500 square feet. This planned development is asking for 5,000 square feet of lot size. That is 2/3 the size. I'm concerned that the small lots, the small homes, are going to encourage small cost building homes in there, and it's going to devalue the adjacent neighborhoods. A secondary concern is if they are not able to maintain all of their floodwaters on the west side of Park Avenue, it's going to flow over to the east side. It's going to flow immediately to the north of my personal property and increase the risk of flood damage that my home can be subjected to. So I understand that the bank wants to get some value out of the land. I think the request that they're making is too much of a concession. If anything, I would suggest a compromise of a lot size instead of the standard 7,500 square feet, go down to 6,500 square feet. Even the Titus Village, which is to the northeast of the intersection of Harrison and Park Avenue, their lots come in at roughly 6,534 square feet. So, and those homes are packed in tight. I would not like to see that density so close to my neighborhood. So, that's about it. So, my suggestion is
So-
to turn down this proposal as it's currently written.
So if they were to come in and say, we'll increase the lot size, we can guarantee the flood waters won't affect the houses to the east, what other concerns?
And the minimum house size of 1,000 square foot, that could be bumped up accordingly.
Minimum house size of you're saying 1,000?
That's too low.
What?
The 1,000 square foot for the home size is too low, in my opinion.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you for your time.
Next card, please.
Janet Parker.
Hello, my name's Janet Parker. I also live in Central Park Estates, right across the street. I'm on the corner. I have the same concerns Mr. Cunningham has on the lot sizes and the square footage of the dwellings. And I also have a concern about the traffic that it's going to incur in that area, since there's currently not a viable second exit. The development is not there right now, so the only, if they built today, the only exit would be the one on Treetop Drive, which is right across from my street. And there's also a school zone, Park Avenue Baptist, and the traffic around them coming to and leaving school is increased, and the when they let out church is increased. So I can see trouble having those cross streets toward each other. I can see problems getting in and out of the neighborhood. You know, going, for me, it would be turning left. I would have problems turning left. So, I'm also concerned about the stormwater, because the stormwater currently does flow across the street from Park Avenue and fill up our little retention area. Last year, it was very wet the whole time after the hurricane. So it just, in fact, it's wet now. So there is water across the street, so I understand your concern about the wetlands. The flying catfish walk across the street when it dries out. So, because they end up in my street. So anyway, thank you for your time.
Thank you. Next card, please.
Scott Bray.
Good evening. My name is Scott Bray. I live in Central Park Estates, right across the street again. My concerns just doubly with them, you know, same as their Kevin and anyway, I have pretty extensive engineering knowledge with this. I work for St. Johns River Water Management District in the stormwater management and water resources, and I would be looking over one of these, and I'm no longer there, but I have a lot of concerns from it from an engineering standpoint. Just from one aspect, the second entrance, and that's from the city side of having two entrances and exits. The question is what happens if that existing site or planned site never gets built, the other site? He doesn't have one. It'll never get built if it doesn't ever get built. You're hoping you're going to have one exit or two exits on something that may or may not ever establish. Okay? So that's one concern I have right there is you're planning on something that may never come. You don't know. Wetlands. When you have wetlands, I don't know if the applicants had any pre-app meetings with the St. John's River Water Management District down there in Melbourne. Hopefully they have and found out, and maybe they had a pre-app meeting with them to at least discuss it, to know what's out there, and their environmental specialists at St. John's would come out and take a look at it and tell you what kind of quality it is. Now, I don't want to say, I mean, I've seen, they hire people to look at a wetland and favor to whatever they want. And I'm not saying that it's not. I'm not a biologist on that, but I do know a little bit about it. What has occurred, and the question is what's occurred behind with the borrow pit to the west of this property? Whatever happened to that? Why is it's been that way for 10 years, probably? I don't know what happened to that site, which I gather he was also talking about. That's where he was going to send the second entrance exit. The borrow pit, there is a canal that runs along the south side of the property that goes along, those residential neighborhoods that go parallel there. I believe it's a ditch that comes off of Park Avenue and goes, and all the runoff goes there, and it also goes from the residential area to the south, goes into that ditch and into the borrow pit. I know any drainage area goes from Park Avenue goes directly into there, the wetlands as well. And I apologize, I'm kind of nervous. I've never really talked in front of the city council before. But anyway, getting back to this, you have upland, when you have a wetland, you can't just look at the wetlands. And I understand you guys were talking about the uplands and conservation areas. You have to worry about the uplands as well. And when you're having properties that are only 5,000 square foot, 50 by 100, and you're packing in 45 lots into, yes, it's only 20, what are they saying, percentage-wise? Percentage of impervious area or buildable area on this is, they're saying, it's only 45% of the whole lot, the whole site. Remember, anybody else that would come in would probably do the same thing. They're including the impervious area or the wetland area that they can't, well, not that they can't, they can come in and demolish it. It needs uplands, and the wetlands need uplands for all the foraging species that utilize it. So you can't just say, the wetland line is here. And so you also have to take that into aspect. And I'm sorry I'm kind of jumping around, but what is the elevation of the wetlands that are there currently? And when you develop it, what is going to occur? I had to review Avalon in Orlando, and what they built was a bridge rather than just putting in corrugated metal or types of pipe network system. This tracked the road that goes through the right-of-way, which is going to encompass 5 acres. Could they do something like a bridge and an environmental, aspect of it? Keep it up high so animals could forage through it that, need it. Instead of doing 45 lots, why don't they make these executive-style homes, going back to the 1,000 square foot minimum acreage or minimum lot house size? Ours is 1,800 square feet across minimum. We had a minimum of 1,800, almost double that. You're asking for almost half that, right across the street. Now, this is the city of Titusville. We've got Blue Origin, right? We've got Tesla coming over. We've got, if you want executive homes, why don't you do something like Windover, where you make these 10 tracks? My personal thought was to make this into like an executive style area. Only have like 15 lots, 1 acre. Make them 1 acre plots or 2 acre plots. You know, I mean, where do you want to see the city of Titusville go as far as building wise? When you have 1,000 square foot home, I mean, you're talking 20 by 50. You know? That's pretty small. I mean, you could fit that into this room, right? What else? The smaller lots, 5,000 square foot, you know, it's pretty small. If you can increase that, I mean, I would make them half-acre lots and go with more of the executive style, because that's what we're trying to promote with Blue Origin coming in. What do you want? What do you want to see here in Titusville? You know, like I said, we've got a minimum of 1,800 square foot homes right across the street. The demographics, what kind of demographics are you going to get with 1,000 square foot minimum? That's about all I can say right now. I'm just trying to think, and my engineering hat's kind of dusty, and I'm trying to pull it back over. But thank you.
So I wanted to ask a quick tag up on this real quick. So they're doing 126 units on 41 acres of uplands.
That's what the proposal is currently, yes.
So, all right, I'll figure this. I'm just trying to look at the real density on this, because in the past we've excluded wetlands from calculations. But I guess since you're using that as open space, but excluding that, I'd kind of like to know what the real usable upland calculations are.
In terms of, the allowable density would be calculated in this case across the entirety of the 80 acres.
It is, but the problem is that that's kind of like shuffling the true, it's kind of like, think of it like if I was to be able to use submerged water, submerged lands, and they intentionally changed the code so that they couldn't use that as calculation. But if you could, you would be able to use that for your calculations. And so we're kind of doing, you can't use this land, it's unusable. And so we're using those in the total calculations. And so, yes. And that's really what I'd like to know, because even I believe that the lots for 5,000 is that the minimum? What is the absolute minimum that you can put in Titusville? It's 5,000?
Based on a typical zoning district, the R1 for a single family, an R1C.
I know it's a PD, but my point is under normal R1B.
Like R1C is
R1C,
6,500 square feet, R1B
Okay.
is 7,500 square feet, and R1A is 10,000 square feet, which is this is smaller than all of those. And
That's my issue.
And so when you look at 126 units across approximately 40 acres of upland, about half the property, that still is, it's 3.15 units per acre, which is still below the maximum allowable by even the R1B, which is around 5 units per acre.
So I thought the calculation was like for high housing was 5 units per acre.
5 units an acre is the maximum allowed by our low-density residential future land use.
Oh, yeah. Well, all right. Okay. Last card?
I have 3 more.
Oh, you have 3 more. Okay, you had 5 before. but-
Roger Leith,
Can you say your name again?
Excuse me?
What was your name again?
Last name's Leith, first name's Roger.
Thank you.
I'm kind of in accord with these two guys back here. I think it's, I just hate to see crummy homes built back there, for one thing. That's what they are, crummy little homes, the size of a mobile home. That's one thing, but the other thing is, if this was deemed a wetland in the beginning, what's different now? All of a sudden it's okay to build homes back there. It never was before. It's been back there for years and years as a wetland, and it's still a wetland. Don't you think it's a kind of a crummy idea to put homes back there? There's more than tortoise. There's water moccasins, there's rattlesnakes, there's coral snakes, mosquitoes, flooding. Just go down there by La Cita every time you have a flash flood, and that's what you're going to get out there every time. There's no magic cure for it. It's just a dumb idea. And just because a bank wants to recoup their money and get a high capitalization rate, you're just doing something that's just silly. There's a wrong area to build homes. And then crummy little homes, we've got enough of those. I don't know whose idea it was to build what we got at the end of Royal Oak and Harrison, but that just killed the whole neighborhood. And about one or two more of them, and we can call it Little Detroit or something, because it's just not no good. So I hate to see crummy little homes back there, and if they have to build something, why can't they do something commercial or something where it's not a lot of people and it's not a lot of little cracker box homes? This isn't a good idea at all. This is just somebody who wants to recoup their money, and they're trying to get permission from you guys to do it. And then some developer is going to come in there. It's a bad idea. There's just a horrible place to build. It's just not practical. Now, I'm not an engineer, I'm just down to earth, but I live on Royal Oak and I'm watching all this, and it's just like, why do this? Why can't we do something else? Use that for commercial or make a park or something else back there. Just because a bank wants to get, hype this up so they can sell it and make a bunch of money. It's just a bad idea. So that's my 2 cents, I'm not an engineer and I'm not a refined person and a qualified opinion, but it's just basic common sense. It's just sometimes it's a stupid idea, and that's what this seems like, just a bad idea. And if you're going to build homes, please build something at least a little bit more decent than what you're proposing. These, you might as well just have RVs back there or something, or an RV lot, a big old RV place. Maybe we can call it, what's that place where when you travel you park your RV or something? I mean, that's what you're proposing here. And it's a floodplain. You're going to have every time it rains, like even when it rained today, it's going to be a problem. It's just going to go on and on. What about hurricanes? Yeah, it's just a bad idea. So,
I do enjoy your candor on this, but I do have a question. Mr. Leith. So, and this is really for the next 3 people or 2 people that come up behind you. Because let's just suppose that this doesn't work. Well, let's just say that it goes through, nothing happens, and then somebody else comes in at a later date, and they say, hey, we got 2 pieces of upland land, we would like to put apartments there. What are your thoughts on this? And I'm asking all this as well as for the people coming up.
I wouldn't want to see apartments there. I see apartments, and then the Royal Oak Drive in Harrison is one of the worst little stretches in the whole town.
It's not that I'm trying to give you the worst case scenario. I'm just asking, I'm asking a valid question, because the reality of it is for people to get their money back, the return under the, what is this currently zoned?
The current zoning is a mix of R1B, which is single family, medium density, and open space and recreation.
And what's the maximum usable density?
In R1B, the maximum allowable density is 5.8 units per acre.
Okay. So, and the reason why I'm asking this is, or phrasing this for you and for the other, is to get an understanding. If they came in and they flipped this and they said, look, we want to go to a higher density, we're not going to do nothing yet, we're going to sit on it, but that's the end result that could happen. And so I'm just trying to figure out what is acceptable to the group, what is not.
Nicer homes with bigger lots. We want to accentuate the neighborhood.
All of you guys are saying the same thing. So
we don't want crummy
you.
little lots with crummy little homes and a bunch of Chapter 8 people coming in there and just bringing down the place. Just let's get some decent homes in there if you're going to build, but don't build too many of them because it's a bad idea in the first place. But if you're going to use that for residential, at least make something decent back there instead of crummy little places. I mean, we live there, and that's why we're concerned. We got enough crummy little places. And the end of Royal Oak Drive is a perfect example. Just go and look at the trash and just what they've done there. And I hear street urchins coming down past my house at 4 in the morning, and there's nothing down there. What are you doing out at 4 in the morning?
I get your point. I do.
Okay.
Thank you. All right, next card, please.
Charles Long.
Two, I thought you put in 4, so.
Yes, my name is Charles Long. I live at 525 Indian River Avenue, right there, about 100 yards. Two of the elders are here from Park Avenue, and quite honestly, we've come into this game kind of late. I got a phone call this afternoon about 4 o'clock, and we had no idea. Y'all had sent correspondence to us, but we've just gotten a new pastor, and there's been a lot of other things to deal with. So we're fact-finding tonight. We're just wanting to find out what's going on, what's being presented. If we're going to have neighbors, we want good neighbors. And so basically, we want to be included on any of the notifications that are sent out. Continue to do that. We'll pay very close attention to them. We haven't thus far. That's our mistake. But we're very interested and concerned about who's going to be just to the immediate south of us. So we just want to be on the record for that.
So you guys you used to print out the agendas and stuff here. Is there a way that we can get him something to take back with them for his research? Gotcha. So that he can take this back to the church.
I'd be more than happy to give you my card. I'll be more than happy to speak with you. I just want to clarify.
Email it to him.
You all did or did not receive the notice card?
2 weeks ago, we received some correspondence from the city about this meeting.
Okay.
Okay.
I just wanted to make sure that we didn't have incorrect address or anything. Okay.
Okay.
Okay, and so they can email you somebody the information.
Correct.
And then you have the packet.
Yeah, we're at a place now where we can start investigating and see, what's being proposed. Thank you. And so.
Okay, now bear in mind, so I heard somebody mention that this was city council. This is not city council. No. This is a board that recommends to city council.
Right.
So this is just one of the first steps in this process.
Yeah, quite honestly, as far as it's my understanding if it passes here, it will be brought up the 13th of August at the city council meeting.
Is that the hearing date?
The next hearing date will be at the next city council meeting. Now, keep in mind, this is just for transmittal to the state review. So on July 24th, the city council will hear this. And if they approve transmittal, it will go to the state. That does not mean it is adopted. It will come back from the state with any comments they have, and then it will come back before this commission and the city council again. So there will be another round of public hearings on this.
Okay. Right, and what he's saying is that could be several months thereafter. Mm-hmm. So there's a couple, you have more than one shot, and I think you even have the ability to at the state level.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So public notices will be sent out again during the next round of public hearings.
Great. Thank you.
All right. And then last card?
Kathleen Burson.
Oh.
There you go. Yeah, okay. This is our conservation, this is our land use plan. The conservation areas of undeveloped areas in green. And it's a very special area of the city. The neighbors made some great points. There are significant problems with the rezoning request. The houses are too small, 1,000 square feet. Been there, done that. The proposed road, the lots are too small, the houses are too small. The proposed road divides the large wetland into half. It doesn't matter if it's cut off from another wetland to the north by Harrison, it's still
is still a significant sized wetland. And cutting it off with a roadway right through the middle of it without bridging that wetland is an issue. We can make a wetland healthier. Just because it's not super healthy right now doesn't mean you can't restore that health. So, and I was glad that Mr. Moya did offer that proposal that, the Brazilian peppers and such could be cleared, and that would be significant. And but putting a causeway through there is not a good idea. A causeway meaning, having a few pipes under a road, it might transmit a little bit of water, but it does cut off the flow, unless you bridge it. So, one of the best points, I think, was made by Mr. Bray, then one of the neighbors, is that the wetlands need uplands. You need uplands for aquifer recharge. You need uplands for migratory, the species. Amphibians are born in wetlands, but they live in uplands. No ecosystem is an island. You see a lot of tortoises and turtles crushed in the road. It's just heartbreaking. Well, why? Why do we see that? Because wetland species need uplands. Turtles nest in the upland. They don't stay underwater all their life. And I've experienced it on my own. I live next to wetlands, and I've seen the migration of frogs after the birthing season. Everybody heads through the upland, and I counted them. There were millions of them. They look like size of grapes, and just in the steady march across from the wetlands through the uplands, through my neighborhood. I counted per square foot, there were 14,000 dead in my road that were supposed to be food for waterfowl when they returned to the wetlands again. Anyways, I'm getting off track. But wetlands and uplands need each other. So my point is, this is our conservation corridor right through here. This property is right here. It's at the southern end of what's left of this significant area. It's a special area of Titusville. It's all we have left. Everything's developed. We've got lots of small houses from years and years ago, from the 40s and the 50s. We need more. We need larger lots, and this is a great location for larger lots, larger houses. It's not La Cita, but, a good size homes, and doing the small lots is we've got enough of that in Titusville. I think this is a step backwards. But anyways, concerning the conservation areas, this is all we have left of what we had, a very large area. It was set aside years ago. There's no roads going through it. It's very unique. You've got large contiguous matrices of wetlands and uplands supporting each other. This plan protects the limit of the wetlands. That's not really saving a wetland. You're not saving the functions of the wetland. You're saving the body of water, a mud puddle, essentially, if you don't have uplands protecting it. So we need the uplands for the wetlands protection, the habitat diversity, the gopher tortoises. There are, in the environmental report, there are documented 10 or more gopher tortoises. The final survey hasn't been done. They haven't surveyed the number of tortoises, but they've surveyed it, and they've located the burrows and the traces of gopher tortoises, so the estimate is about 10. It could be more. The wetlands protection is nothing special. St. John's already does that. So, by going to PD, they're not going to mitigate the wetlands, but they're not really preserving the wetlands either. It's just, outlining the border of the wetland and saying, we're not going to develop that. That doesn't mean you're saving the functions of the wetland. So, you don't buy wetlands. Their financial investment is in the uplands. It's not in the wetlands. So to save the wetlands, we do that already. And here's the thing. With this plan, they're asking for 128 homes. I am sure that they can get as many homes as they would have had under the R1B with the 75-foot lots. They can get just as many homes in here as that and still preserve some uplands. The smaller lots produce a subdivision, as one of the neighbors pointed out, that squishes everything together. So you can't save a tree. You can't save a tortoise. You can't save anything. It's all new, just like Park Avenue, the corner of Park Avenue and Knox-McRae. It's just total wipeout, and then you bring in homes and a few street trees. It's a total clearing of the upland habitat, except for, like they pointed out, something along Park Avenue that they want to put a dog walk through. I mean, that's not really habitat preservation. That's just, they can't develop that area, so let's set it aside. I'm not trying to be condescending to the developer or the engineer. You know, I appreciate their efforts, but I'm asking you, what do you want? Do you want to preserve more than just the wetland as a outline of water, or do you want to preserve the functions of the wetland and start a trend for this area, because it's under attack. There's real estate signs on every lot. If you go down South Street and Harrison and all these areas, there's a real estate sign on every property. So do you want to save some habitat diversity, some of the taller majestic pines? The wood ducks from the wetland, they nest in the pines. The woodpeckers can't survive without pines. You know, there's no pines in a wetland. It's not, at least not slash pines and longleaf pines. And have some space for the gopher tortoises. So what I'm suggesting to you is that you support conditions on the rezoning to preserve deeper buffers around the wetlands, an area of the tall pines, the most significant or sensitive area for the gopher tortoises. And the developer, the bank, there is no developer. This is very preliminary. This is way too preliminary to be changing the zoning on this. They don't even have someone to build it yet. This is just a marketing tool. So, so I would just suggest that you ask yourself, do we want more than just dead wetlands? Do we want to preserve the function of the wetlands and preserve some upland habitat? So how would they do that? By preserving the most sensitive areas according to their final environmental assessment. So this is just a condition that you put on the rezoning, and it's done all the time in my neighborhood, which I'm on the other side. This is my neighborhood, but I'm on the Knox-McRae side. I'm where the other neighborhood that's going to tie into their road will come out right next to my property. And we got 100-foot buffers conditioned on the ALF that's on the corner of South and Fox Lake Road, South Street and Fox Lake Road, because it backs up to our 1-acre lot neighborhood. So they've got 1/4-acre lots immediately adjacent to this. We're 1-acre lots and 5-acre lots and 10-acre lots. We're equestrian, we're rural, we're right on the other side of the Lake Bella property. So this is really out of character for our neighborhood. And but with that, I would ask for conditions. I would ask that you would ask for conditions on this rezoning to limit the amount of the uplands that are developed, and they will still have a feasible development by doing that.
Is that it?
Yes, sir. Thank
All
you.
right, thank you. So you know the process, but my fear on this is it's a PD, and we don't really determine. I mean, under the ALF, that comes under a conditional use, and then that can be added into the conditional use. Is it 50 foot for wetlands, or what is it now?
What do you mean conditional use?
ALFs were under conditional, and you can add those conditions in ALFs.
You can add it in any rezoning. You can put conditions on a rezoning. Is that your question?
Well, the chances that they hold is the problem.
Even in a PD, you have, as I said before, you have some flexibility to negotiate with the developer. And so I'm not going to say that you can't put conditions on this or recommend conditions for the city council to consider. But that would be up to the commission and your discretion on that as to whether or not you want to add additional conditions onto what is proposed.
Your responsibility as a city, whether you're the council or or planning and zoning, is to not deny a reasonable development of land. That doesn't mean you have to give the maximum allowed. 5,000 square foot lots and 128 homes is the maximum. To ask for something back is within your rights. Reasonable development, not maximum development.
No, but you also come in with the assumption that the current zoning is correct. And so, I mean, we could assume that, which, I mean, you made a very valid point that R1B could potentially give them the same density, if not more. But the buffers would make that determination as well, plus tying it in.
And with the rising seas, it's going to be very difficult to, with the small amount of stormwater they have on this plan, to accomplish what they've got. I just think the whole rezoning request may be too preliminary, you know.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, and that was the last card?
Yes, sir.
All right, so we'll close this meeting. The public, bring it back before the board. I did have a question on the
Would you like to
density.
give the applicant an opportunity for rebuttal?
I'm sorry, yes. My apologies, so.
Thank you very
If
much.
you come back up and do the rebuttal and.
Thank you.
Go ahead.
Well, see something, a lot of things haven't changed here in Titusville since last time I was here, but I couldn't disagree more than what the last person that just came up here and spoke and some of the people that did come up to speak. We could ask for 5 units to the acre. We're not asking for that. We're only asking for 1.5. So that is not the maximum. That is like the bare minimum to make this a viable project. We could, the only thing I think I heard that I thought really might make sense that we'd be willing to offer would be the house size. We'll go from 1,000 to 1,200. 1,200 is the minimum square footage you can build in R1B, which is what all the zoning is around us. More than happy to make that concession. We'll go to 1,200 square foot minimum. That would match any house that could be built in any of the neighborhoods that came up here to speak, which is kind of convenient that if you look at the aerial of this property and the property around it, it's very apparent that this wetland doesn't just exist where it is now. It was a lot larger, and all the property across the street basically filled it all in, built it, maxed it out, no retention whatsoever, and built homes and roads. We're proposing to basically do classic planning, cluster development in the uplands, preserve all the wetlands possible. The fact that we're building a road across the wetland is inconsequential to the health of the wetland. Look at Pineda Crossing, Pineda Causeway, when they spanned a wetland. It works just fine. The verbiage in the report says the wetland quality is low to moderate. Although the wetland is part of a large wetland system that extends offsite to the north and west, that system is degraded by road crossings, artificial drainage, direct discharge of untreated roadside stormwater, extensive invasion of exotic plant species, and even the possible introduction of sewage during major storm events. That doesn't sound like a good wetland to me, but you know what? We can make it good. With this development, we can control that. We can build in the uplands, control what gets discharged to the wetlands, control the drainage that's just going willy-nilly all over the place, affecting the neighbors. If we do nothing, nothing changes. It still impacts them. We would be a reduction in impact if we could build this development, control the runoff, control where everything goes, build homes that are going to be brand new. They're going to be under a deed restriction. There's going to be homeowners associations that make sure this property stays nice. We're building these things all over South County, all over, and they're beautiful, and people are flocking to them. Nobody wants a 75-foot lot. We can build it, but no one will buy it. So why would we even propose that? And why would you want more of the same thing you already have all over the city? This is a different type of development a different choice for people that want to live here, housing choice for people that want to live here in your city. Why would you not give them some variety? That's what we're doing down south, and it's working great. And these subdivisions are well-maintained. They're good, outstanding citizens that buy these properties. They're not cheap homes. They're not mobile homes. They're not, inexpensive, low-quality garbage, like somebody was saying. It's good, quality homes built by good quality builders that will be maintained and governed by a homeowners association that will have minimum standards for what they have to do to keep this thing nice. So I would think that building something to control all the issues that were being discussed is a lot better than living with them the way they are, from what I heard. So minimum density, cluster development to preserve the wetlands. I think this is the best possibility you guys have for this property. So I really hope that you you approve this, and we are, like I said, willing to up the square footage of the home to 1,200 square feet.
Okay, questions? Member Noel Copeland.
Yes, you said that this would be done by quality builders with HOAs and deed restrictions. Can you guarantee that if the property has not been sold?
I don't know anybody that's building it any other way.
That's not the
I can't
question.
guarantee that, but that's, when we come to, I mean, we're really getting ahead of ourselves, but when we
Agreed.
submit our preliminary plat and our next submittal that goes to you guys, all the documents will be submitted to the city for your review, showing how we're developing the homeowners association, because you have to have one. You have to have somebody that maintains your stormwater ponds. You have to have someone that's going to maintain all the recreation tracks. So there's going to have to be a homeowners association. Now, to the extent of how deed restricted it really is going to be, that's up to the developer. And
Right.
that usually depends on the mean income of the area. They do their market studies, what's going to sell, what the price point's going to be.
And the mean
of course,
income will be relatively lower because of the lot size and the home size.
it's whatever's surrounding the area. So if the market price will dictate how much you can actually enforce on a development like this, that will still make it affordable for the
But the
people
market
that
price
live there.
of these homes, correct? Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
Okay.
I mean, you're not going to put.
And I think that's part of the objection that the neighbors have is with this lot size and this home size, the mean income of the people that will buy these homes will be lower than if they were larger lots and larger
I
homes.
mean, I don't know what.
I believe that's
yeah,
what
yeah.
part of
And I don't know
the
what
objection
homes are
is.
going for in this area, but I imagine that they're probably somewhere in the high ones to low twos. I don't know. I don't know your market that well, but I don't know what homes, existing homes are selling for that are older. I don't know the age of the homes that are across the street. I don't know what they're selling for. I could probably go on the property appraiser's website and see what some of them have sold for in the past, but these are going to be probably around the low twos, would be my guess. I don't know, but that's be my guess for a development of this type in an area like this. That's not garbage. That's pretty.
No, I agree, that's not garbage. That seems, to me, I mean, I haven't bought a new house that size lately, but that seems high for that size to me in that area.
Yeah, and nobody's probably going to build, no one would build a 1,000 square foot home, even if that was the minimum. They're probably going to be more like 12 to 14 to 16.
But how big can they be if this is the lot
They
size?
could be, I've seen them up to over 1,800 square feet on a lot this size.
With the setbacks and all the restrictions of
Absolutely.
how big?
Of course, yeah, they would have to be, meet all of the setback requirements and any of the lot coverage requirements. But, even if you have a 1,000 square foot footprint or 1,200 square feet, a two-story home quickly, which some of them are, quickly doubles that. So it is easy, I shouldn't say easy, but it is feasible to get that amount of square footage on one of these lots.
Okay.
So if, are you done? So let's just suppose that conditions are asked. One of them be increased housing size. You said you'd bring it up to 1,200, but if we were to say we would want a minimum of 1,400, would that be acceptable? I know it's difficult and it's preliminary, but bear in mind, we're recommending board. This could go to council, and it's literally a whole new meeting.
Understand. And
Sometimes.
that would be inconsistent with the zoning and the surroundings, but if that's what you want to impose, then I
Why,
would.
what do you perceive
Well,
other-
R1B, which is the surrounding zoning, as in the zoning it is right now.
Yes.
The minimum lot size is 1,200, or the house size is 1,200 square feet.
1,200.
So to make it more would be
Okay.
inconsistent.
Yeah, I understand. And then buffers. Buffers were brought up.
Yes.
What is the current buffer plan on your plan?
We have a perimeter buffer around the entire subdivision of a minimum of 25 feet.
Right.
And then it gets obviously a lot larger when you get to the wetlands. There's huge wetlands.
But I'm saying to the wetlands, not to,
Oh, well,
From the wetland
that's
to the-
dictated by
It is.
St. John's. It's 15 minimum, 25 average.
I thought it was more, yes, but
That's what was listed in the environmental report.
I thought we put buffers of minimum of like 50 or, well, I don't know. It's, our code changes so much.
I don't recall there ever being that, but I haven't been here all that long.
Maybe
So
I'm thinking of when we, I just recall us going through wetland buffers, and I thought we were increasing them, but it might just be 25, like you were saying.
Yeah.
Which, to me, that's the same as, it's very minimal, in my opinion, but, so, I'm just trying to, what I'm trying to do is find a happy medium, but it doesn't sound like, it really doesn't sound like we're gonna get that tonight between,
I did have another question, I'm sorry.
okay.
There were several concerns about the only one road in and out, then the other one being predicated on another property being approved for development and then being developed. Is there another option for a second entry exit into this neighborhood?
No, we normally wouldn't even do one for a neighborhood this small. Usually it's not required till you get over 200, but, you know, it's gonna take, even if everything went through perfectly and you guys approved it and we did our design and we went down the road, you know, you're not gonna get that thing built out for probably 3 years. So that gives plenty of time for that development to come on board. So, I mean, we're planning for it. Of course, we don't have a crystal ball, but that's our plan, is to have that. If we only have one entrance for 126 lots, that's not very much, honestly. That wouldn't warrant two entrances.
if I may, the code in section 30-242 required access points, it establishes a number of access points per number of households. Anything between 1 and 100 is 1 and 100 units is required to have at least one access point. In the code, it says anything between 101 and 200 units is required to have two, except, and it does provide an exception. And what that says is residential developments between 101 and 200 households may be approved by the authority having jurisdiction, defined as the fire chief or designee, with only one point of access if, in the opinion of the authority having jurisdiction, equivalent safety measures consistent with NFPA standards are implemented. As I said before, the fire department did review this. There's a fire station just up the road at the intersection of Harrison and Park here. And so because of that, the fire department did not object to only having one access point. The applicant actually added that secondary access point as kind of a best planning practice to hopefully accommodate that neighboring development. Now, if it doesn't happen, it doesn't happen, but it's not that we are requiring, you know, if that development doesn't happen, it's not that this proposed development will be inconsistent with the land development regulations. The fire department, like I said, did not object, and so the applicant agreed to put that in as a means of, you know, bettering connectivity, but not as a requirement of access. And so I just wanted to clarify that.
Okay. All right, well, thank you.
Thank you.
So I will officially close this to the public this time. I apologize for that. So I wanted to bring up the access points to city staff. In the past, I recall it was mandatory at them thresholds of having 2 access points. And then when we did change the code, it was basically discussed that if we're gonna go to 1 access point, that one main road would be big enough to be able to accommodate if there was a blockage. And I'm just, you know, I know that maybe I'm old school. I've been on the board too long, and, you know, it's just, I know why we changed these things over all these years, and I see us making these changes to be more competitive to other markets, to be more accepting to developments, but in the end, we lose the reasoning of why those codes were in place. And then it becomes, well, the department approved it, so they reviewed it and they had the opportunity. And, you know, it's like, there were reasons for that. And if, bear in mind, you have basically 100 houses that are caught on that one access point, that causeway, that they have no access but, well, on foot if that gets blocked. So that is a concern for me. It's like my concern originally was the house size, the lots. It's not like I think that these should be executive estates. Obviously, the neighbors would love to have, I mean, if I lived there, I would want the home values to go up on across the street from me, you know, obviously. But the fact of the matter is that the property owner has to make this viable for market conditions. And so we need to find a happy medium in that. Originally, I came in and I just thought, well, okay, it seemed simple. I had some questions with the, you know, with the survey that was brought in. But I do come in with an open mind, and I want to hear. It's like I'm leaning towards one way, but I want to hear. So I'm very thankful that people come out and talk, because I don't want to come in with a predetermined, you know, opinion. And I do believe that a lot of this discussion has helped me with the decision. Now, bear in mind, we're just a recommending board, so. And with 4 members on this, it changes the game as well, because 2 people, it takes 3 people to approve, 2 people to disapprove. So the threshold becomes more. But I do have some concerns. Kathleen brought up some really interesting points, and I've heard them before about you need upland to support the wetland. I know that. The problem is that to do that, you need to give more than, and then it doesn't become financially viable for them. So I understand why they want to do that. On the other hand, I would suggest that maybe the applicant gets with the neighbors and try to come up with a happy medium. But at this point in time, I'm not real comfortable with the development, because I'm afraid that it's just not, I don't feel comfortable with it. And I try to be accommodating to developers as much as I can, but at the other hand, and I've said this a million times, you only get one shot, and then it's that way for at least 50 years. And so I think it needs to be compatible, for one. For 2, we need to look at the wetland a little bit better. I'm concerned with cutting off up to 100 homes. I was concerned with the lot size, and I was concerned with the house size. Although we increased the house size, you know, they can agree to that. It's just, to me, for those reasons, I don't believe that I can support this. But then again, I'm just one vote. So, is there any other discussion on this, or anybody would like to put their thoughts out there?
I think the lot size and the house size is rather small, 5-foot setback on the sides. That's just, I just think for the area, Park Avenue Baptist, the homes across the street, they're larger homes. You want to keep your market area pretty consistent, and I don't think this is going to be consistent with where I see Titusville going. So I just think this is, I think this needs to be readdressed and reworked with conditions. I don't like it the way it is.
So currently, with this being R1B, what is the potential build out on R1B?
The current, in general, the current amount of R1B zoned property is about 50 acres. So if you take that 50 acres and multiply it by the 5.8 allowable units per acre, which I guess actually the land use allows 5 units per acre, so 50. The build-out potential currently is 250 units.
Right, I figured low at 205, but my point on that is that by disapproving this, we would not be taking anything away.
There is still potential for development on the property as it stands. I would like to note too that even in the conservation land use, it does require a conditional use permit, but single-family homes are allowed even in the OR zoning district and within that conservation land use. So there is still some additional.
3 to an acre or
It's
5?
Sorry, 1 unit per 5 acres.
1 unit, okay, 1 unit per 5 acres.
So
I knew we talked about the OR and what was the
General
other?
use.
General use, yeah, so those 1 and 3.
So
Or
they
3,
could-
5 and 3 acres.
So they could still come back and potentially build this out even more.
If they chose to develop in the R1B zoning district and they created they came in with a subdivision design that met the requirements of the R1B zoning district, that could actually just go and start moving through the plating process, and it would not require a rezoning or a public hearing necessarily.
Right.
So like you said, if we vote against this, it's not really taking anything away.
Right. So I just, my concern is, we need the neighbors to be comfortable. I'm not comfortable in, I don't want to say tract housing, but I can't remember the word we used to use. But we shifted this way maybe 10 years ago where we're literally putting houses 5 feet apart from one another. Yeah. So, I just,
Shake hands with your neighbor.
I know you're in real estate, but that's something that I just don't agree with. Anyway,
Right.
so is there anything else that anybody would like to ask or bring up or? So, all right, if we take a vote on this, does somebody make a motion? I mean, that is to approve or disapprove, it's up to you guys. But somebody needs to make a motion and it can't be me. That's like,
I make a motion that we do not approve this.
okay, is there a second?
I'll second it.
So can we take roll call on this? Vote.
Member Baker?
Okay, before I vote, I just want to make sure I understand. A yes is.
Yes means,
A yes is to not approve.
right.
A yes would not approve. Okay, just want to make sure I've got this right. Yes.
Member Noel Copeland?
Yes.
Member Ritchie?
Yes.
Chairman Williams?
Yes. Now, bear in mind, it still goes to council. And I would say that, think of this as your test run. You know how.
Before we move on, can we get reasons for denial so we can include that to the along with the recommendation that goes to council?
Right, well, I know, you want me to repeat?
I have
What
written
I said?
I have written most of them down. I just want to
Okay.
make sure that we include.
Attorney speaker.
Lot size and house size. So that's my main concerns.
And cutting off the wetlands.
I agree with those, plus the single entry point.
Okay. And I blabbered about this for most of the meeting, so I think you know what I got, so. All right, if we can go to the next item, please. This goes to council, would you say the 24th?
Correct. Yes, which is next Tuesday.
It would be very, if you want to say, be there. You know what to expect. And you just, well, see you on the 24th. All right, we'll go to the next item, please.
Okay, item 9C starts on page 82 of your packet. This is for the acceptance of the right-of-way of Helen Hauser Boulevard south of Highway 50. As I'm sure many of you are aware, there's a significant amount of development going on south of 50 on Helen Hauser. That street was never formally basically dedicated to the city, and so the request of this is to recommend to accept the right-of-way for Helen Hauser, just the portion that is south of Highway 50 from basically from Highway 50 all the way down to the terminus near that was recently constructed. And so that was basically the city entered into an agreement with West 50 Plaza LLC to accept the street once it was brought up to city standards. So the developer has gone through the necessary construction to bring that up to city standards, and they are now asking to basically fulfill that agreement and have the city accept that right-of-way consistent with that.
Okay. So we will open this to the public. Do we have cards on this?
No, sir.
Okay, so we'll close it to the public. Are there discussions with this with staff? Member Baker?
I have a question about this. So right now, Helen Hauser Boulevard, north of 50, is the one that runs next to Cracker Barrel and to the other hotels back there.
Correct.
So now, if it goes south also, are they going to do anything about the making, when you go to Cracker Barrel, making you turn right? Is it going to be an intersection there? Is it still going to be the same dysfunctional thing it is now?
I don't believe any intersection improvements are proposed. This was just to bring the street itself up to city standards. Since that's a DOT right-of-way, I don't believe any improvements are required. I know that the engineer for the project is here. He may be able to elaborate on that. Sorry,
Hi,
Good evening. Hi, Woody Rice, 505 Indian River Avenue. And yes, there is a terminus. There's a T intersection at the terminus that's designed for fire trucks, garbage trucks, and everything to turn around at the end of the road. So,
But nothing on 50 where the mess is?
I'm sorry?
Nothing on Highway 50?
No.
Where
Okay. Actually, Helen Hauser, the very first part of Highway 50 was already existing. It had just never been accepted by the city. And with the agreement that we had with the city, we actually milled the first section and repaved it, and then built the second section to city standards as per the agreement that we had with the city. So we're just asking for formal acceptance at this time.
Okay, thank you. So this road goes to the new hotels on the south side of 50?
That's correct.
So IHOP is to the west?
Correct.
Off
and
this
so it
road.
extends from where that road terminated on south to, and as Woody said, there's a T turnaround down there, and eventually it will be able to accommodate additional development.
And is there, other than the city would own the maintenance of this road now, is there any other financial obligation of taking ownership or?
Other than the maintenance, no. And that's why the agreement was put into place, so that when we accepted the roadway, it was to our set of city standards, which is typical anytime like a residential subdivision street is accepted or anything like that.
So the city's already agreed to this. This is a formality.
The city agreed to accept the roadway if it was brought up to city spec, and that, yes,
they
this
have
is the
done that.
procedure, correct. This is the procedure
Okay.
to formally accept that roadway.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Are there any other questions of staff, or? So can we have a motion on this?
I make a motion that we accept this road as the city has already agreed to do.
Okay, is there a second? Second. Can we take a vote on this?
Member Baker?
Yes.
Member Ritchie?
Yes.
Member Noel Copeland?
Yes.
Chairman Williams?
Yes. Okay.
Okay, the next item 9D, starts on page 94 of your packet. This is an ordinance that is related to manufactured homes. As you know, we went through the Land Development Code rewrite. That was completed in 2016 and officially went into effect in 2017. What we discovered is, as we have been slowly bringing things back to you, in error, certain things were excluded. And so what this ordinance does is it reintroduces regulations related to manufactured housing that were previously in the code, and we would like to basically reintroduce, as it was not intended to be changed through that code update process. And so there are a couple changes to section 6-56, which are in the code of ordinances of the city. And then the remainder of the changes are in the land development regulations, mainly related to accessory uses and also minimum open space requirements. So these aren't any, like I said, these aren't any changes. We're not requiring anything different out of these types of properties. It's just an effort to clean up and make the code as clean as possible as it was previously. And with that, I'll try to answer
So
any
it's
questions.
literally whatever was struck before, you're literally putting the same language back in?
Correct.
No changes at all?
Correct.
Nobody's going to become non-compliant once this goes through?
No.
Okay.
Okay, so, do we have any cards on this?
No, sir.
So we'll close this to the public. Bring it back for the board. Is there a motion on this item or questions of staff? Any other questions? Okay, so then can we get a motion on this item?
I'll make a motion to approve ordinance number XX-2018.
Okay, is there a second? Second. Okay, can we take a vote on this?
Member Ritchie?
Yes.
Member Noel Copeland?
Yes.
Member Baker?
Yes.
Chairman Williams?
Yes.
Thank you. The next item, item 9E, starts on page 101 of your packet. This is an ordinance relating to the location of accessory structures on deep lots in residential zoning districts. So the way that the land development regulations are currently written is that no accessory structure can be in the front yard of a residential property. And so the difference between a front yard and a front yard setback is a front yard setback is a minimum typically 25 feet that you can't have your home any closer to the street than that. However, in our regulations, a front yard is any distance between the front of your home and the street. And so what we have found is that there are several examples in the city of people having very deep lots and their homes are very far towards the back of them, and eventually they would either like to put a pool or a garage in what is technically considered their front yard, even though it is still a great distance back from the street. And so staff, after working with a couple property owners, petitioned the city council to see if they would be interested in allowing some accessory structures in a front yard, not a front yard setback, if a lot meets certain criteria. And so basically what this ordinance does is that accessory structures, including swimming pools, can be located in the front yard of a single-family residential lot when the lot is 500 feet or greater in depth, and provided that all accessory structures are set back a minimum of 100 feet from the front property line. And so the ordinance that you see there on page 102 and 103 tries to accomplish just that. And so I believe Mr. Paris is here, and he is one of the property owners that we've been working with, and he has expressed interest in putting a pool in what is technically his front yard. And so passing of this ordinance would allow him and lots in a similar configuration to be able to have additional use of their property on those very deep lots. And so with that, I'll try to answer any questions that you have.
Okay, let's open this to the public. Do we have cards on this item?
No, sir.
Okay, we'll close it to the public. Member Noel Copeland?
Are fences allowed in these front yards today?
You can have a fence in the front yard. What has been applied in the past, there are regulations for within a front yard setback, the maximum height for a fence is 4 feet. However, even on a deep lot today, so long as you stay out of the front yard setback, which is typically 25 feet, you can have a fence that is 6 feet in height.
You can.
You can.
So is this what concerns me is just the language of detached buildings and structures. It sounds like any detached building. There's no restriction on what someone could put in front of their home.
They could put a detached garage, a shed, a carport. Yeah, it would.
Basically anything that today they can put in their side or backyard, they will now be able to put in their front yard.
Correct, so long as it is at least 100 feet from the front property line.
And there's no requirement that a fence would go in front of any of this?
No, we did not include that as part of the recommendation. That's not to say that they couldn't put one up if they wanted to, but it's not required.
And could we require it as part of the code change?
You can certainly make that recommendation.
Okay.
Okay. Are there any other questions? Okay. Is there any other discussion? I do recall, actually, I thought about you guys when I read this, and I know about the pool. So, I do believe that with large lots like that, there's exceptions that could be, in the code change allows for that. So, is there a motion on this item?
I think the 100-foot setback gives a good thought.
The intent on that was most of the single-family zoning districts that we have in the city, like a R1B, for example, your typical lot depth is about 100 feet on one of those. And so we felt that if an accessory structure was set back the typical depth of a single-family lot, that it generally would be unobtrusive from the street. You're not going to really notice it if you drive by if it's set back that far off the roadway. And so that's kind of where we came up with that 100-foot number, is that's kind of the distance of a typical lot. And so if it's off the street that far, it's going to be very difficult to notice.
And when the big discussion about the developer here, I mean, the lots were only 50 by 100. So, I mean, 100 feet, I think is a good size.
I'd just like to add a comment to Member Noel Copeland's statement. If it is a swimming pool that's outdoors, the building code would require it to be fenced for safety reasons.
Okay.
I'd like to make a motion that we approve as is item 9E, ordinance number XX 2018.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
All right. Can we take a roll call on this?
Member Baker?
Yes.
Member Noel Copeland?
Yes.
Member Ritchie?
Yes.
Chairman Williams?
Yes. Okay. When's this come before council?
It will go, I believe, the next meeting for first reading, and then, let me pull up my calendar here, August 7th for public hearing, or maybe the 14th. The 14th, sorry, yeah, for
Okay.
public hearing in front of city council.
Good. Now you know. And I'm sure you already do. All right, if we'll go to the next item.
Okay, item 9F starts on page 105 of your packet. This is an ordinance relating to fences and corner lots. The current definition of corner lot has resulted in some confusion along the area of a curved roadway, which may function as a corner, but does not meet the strict definition of a corner. This confusion has proved to be challenging, especially in determining the placement and height of fences in these areas. And so, to kind of give you an example, there's some of the newer subdivisions, especially down off of Sisson Road, where a street makes a 90-degree bend, but is technically not a corner lot because it does not intersect with another street. It just makes a 90-degree curve, but it's not technically a corner lot as defined by our land development regulations. And so there was a petition presented to City Council to go in and address these fences on curve lots, is what I've kind of called them, because they're not technically a corner per our land development regulations. And so the changes to the code that you see here allows, and this is on page 107, this is a change to Chapter 30, and basically it strikes the part of, let's see, the front setback. So it helps to clarify what a corner lot is, and allows for corner lots to be specified on a deed, or sorry, not a deed, but a plat. And that helps. We've been working with developers to try to get them to clarify what they want to consider corner lots on their plats as they get them to go forward, as this issue has become more common. And so that has been helping the problem, but for those projects that are already platted and are starting construction, it does not help them because they can't go back and add things to their plat. And so the second part of this, and I'll get back to the whole corner versus curve discussion, is we wanted to, we also got direction to include what are appropriate materials for fences to be made out of. And so you'll see on page 108, it says fences and walls should be fabricated from wood, aluminum, wrought iron, vinyl, brick, or other approved materials manufactured specifically for fences and walls. Non-traditional fence materials such as tires, mufflers, hubcaps, galvanized roofing, and corrugated metal are prohibited. There have been requests for that in the recent past, and so we got advisability along with this to clarify what is considered an appropriate fencing material. And so that is the list that staff came up with. If you're more than welcome, we're more than welcome to have that discussion if you'd like. And then moving on to section 3 there on page 108, we wanted to clarify that the site visibility triangle should not be impeded on those fences that are on those corner lots or those curve lots. And so we added in there, within the side corner yard of a corner lot, a fence in excess of 4 feet in height shall be set back a minimum of 35 feet from the property line. And the best way to kind of show that is the illustration that's on page 109. So you'll see there that the lot that's illustrated on the left is, one of those lots where it's a 90-degree curve, and you can still have a 6-foot fence in the side yard. It just has to be set back at least 35 feet from that front property line, and that's to ensure sight lines for pedestrians and for vehicles as they are approaching that curve or that corner. And so that's in general what we had come up with. The revised definition for a corner lot is then on page 110, and an illustration that goes with that is on page 111. So again, we're just trying to provide some clarity on this because it was becoming a frequent topic of discussion, and we got direction from council to go in and amend those or draft amendments to help clarify those. And so that's in general what we came up with. I'm more than happy to try and answer any questions that you have. But again, this was to try to clean up some issues that we've been recently having in the LDRs.
Okay. We'll open this to the public and close it to the public. And are there questions of staff?
Do the fence materials, that's not just about corner lots, that's a general change to the fencing rules?
Correct. That would be for any fencing materials, not just for those on corner lots.
And so this is forward-looking. Do people have to change their fencing if they don't come into compliance after a certain amount of time?
That language was not included, but let's say that a fence is destroyed during a storm or something like that. When they went to reconstruct their fence, they would have to bring it into conformance. But in terms of any kind of amortization.
So everybody's grandfathered in unless it's destroyed up to a certain percentage and they have to rebuild the fence, basically.
Right. There's no amortization language that says within 5 years you have to replace it consistent with this. So that has not been included as part of this ordinance.
Okay. I don't want to discuss the various materials.
Well, I wanted to bring up one of the materials. It was, so you had galvanized roofing, which when I think of that, I think of junkyards, and they put the wavy aluminum. All right, so that's what I think of is, but at the same time, you have aluminum fencing, so.
So sometimes fencing that looks like wrought iron with the bar across the top and the bottom and the small kind of.
No, and I understand that, but I'm just saying that, but that too, the galvanized steel could be aluminum, and so I'm just saying that.
This says if it's sold as fencing, it's fine.
Okay.
Yeah, so if you try to take galvanized roof or aluminum roofing or corrugated metal of any sort, that's obviously not a fencing material. It's a different application.
Unless somebody sells it as, unless it's marketed as fencing that looks like that, but
Yeah.
that's the distinction in here.
Okay.
Is any material
That is
sold
good.
as fencing?
Good. All right, so do we have a motion on this? I only got 3 people can do that, so.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Okay,
Second.
okay, we got 2 seconds. And can we take a vote on this?
Member Baker?
Yes.
Member Ritchie?
Yes.
Member Noel Copeland?
Yes.
Chairman Williams?
Yes. All right.
The next item, actually, we won't need your motion on, but staff is withdrawing this item. We're going to bring it back to you at a later date. We wanted to, after further review, we wanted to take some time and clarify a little bit further the additional language in here. So it will come back before you. It's just there are going to be some slight changes to it, and so we don't need to discuss it this evening.
Can I say something on this real quick, though? So I went through this, and I went through the original language, and I was like, okay, so I went to that court decision and read some of what they were talking about. And so I'm trying to understand how is the current code conflicting with that decision when the code was, I don't feel like it's limiting
It's
anything.
not, it's really not that bad, which is why you haven't seen us affect our temporary sign code yet.
Yeah.
And there are things in it that, with a fine tooth comb, our office and the planning department has identified that basically the test is if you have to read the sign in order to determine what it says, then it's content-based as far as what the regulation is. If the regulation says that the city's regulating whether or not you're putting up an off-site, off-premises sign, if you have to read it to determine if that sign is related to the site that it's posted upon, then it's content that we're regulating. And so we're being very cautious to remove anything that regulates the content and to only regulate the time, place, and manner, the size and the location, the buffers, the setback,
yeah, I know, but I
and all of
thought
that.
my thing on our current code is, that's kind of what it does. It does that for the most part. It just says where you can put it, where you can't put it. It doesn't say what you can put.
But it does regulate some of those based on the content in that we have certain regulations
Politics,
for
political.
garage sale signs versus political signs versus real estate signs. And so in general, most of the allowable sizes and location of all of those signs were pretty similar anyway. So what we're doing now is just basically saying, if you're going to have a temporary sign on a piece of property, it can, regardless of what it says on it, it can be so big and in certain locations, and you can have so many of them. So it was an attempt to make sure, that we were in conformance with that Supreme Court case and to clean up those temporary sign regulations. In general, our other sign regulations don't have much of an issue with that. We just regulate whether it's a wall sign or a ground sign, and so that's you can still regulate those types of signs because it's based on a type of sign based on the type of construction and the size and that. So
I thought that our code wasn't that bad, but it seemed like it did quite a bit of a rewrite for something that I didn't think, maybe some tweaks, but.
And like I said, really the majority of it was based on, because it specifically regulated different types of temporary signs in terms of, the political and that. So that's really what generated the need for the change.
The other, I think, I just read just recently, I don't know if it's West Melbourne, or there was a story about them wanting to, or some city wanting to knock off, when somebody has a tree business, I think the sign that and they'll just go up and tap it on something. There's some local city that is supposed to be doing something about that.
Are you referring to the snipe signs?
Yeah.
Yeah, so that would be considered a temporary sign. Within the city here, a lot of the signs that you see in the right-of-way where they, people just drop them off or whatever, those are considered snipe signs. They're basically the small little vinyl ones that you can just go buy.
Yes.
And
I
so
remember the last election, there's some guy that cut lumber, or what do you call those guys? The tree service guy. And he just blanketed the area, along with the politicians. And, I mean, hey, that's smart, I'm sure he got some business out of it. It's not like I blame him, but my point is that it seems like the only thing that you're changing is on this is you can't put them on right away and you got to have permission. But that's currently what it is anyway. So, anyway, I thought it was odd, but you guys know this better than I do, so. Okay, and is that the last item?
I just have a report. The semi-annual report that we are submitting to City Council is on page 133. It's very straightforward. It's just how many meetings we've had, how many items have been heard, and that's basically it. So. Okay. I didn't know, was anyone going to be present to present? You don't have to. It can be submitted as written. Oh, okay. And one other thing I did want to share.
Wants to go, he's more than welcome.
One other thing I did want to share. We received word from Dr. Faison that he is resigning from the board. So he will be stepping down, and he is going to send in a letter, I think is what he told us. So that will be official. We'll get that on the council agenda once we receive that correspondence from him. Just wanted to make you all aware.
Okay.
Do what?
Did you tell him he couldn't do that?
I did not speak to him, so.
Okay, and that is it on that. So is there anything to report from city attorney? Okay. Member Hare, do you have anything from the school board?
Not this week because Mr. Lindman is traveling, so there's not a report.
Okay, Member Noel Copeland? Okay, well, that's a smile there. There was something there, but you're going to wait, right?
Very sarcastic, and I decided.
Okay. Member Baker? Member Ritchie?
I saw on Facebook that the gentleman that owns Searstown Mall, that they are starting to redo it. They're going to do one at a time. They're going to do a banquet room. Do you have any information on that?
The event center was the conditional use permit that came, one of them that came to you earlier this year on that, for that property. I believe that they are still pursuing getting that event center up and running. And
I think it's available for lease already.
okay,
That's what my understanding is.
okay,
And the little kids gym, it's on. The little kids gym that was also here.
Right.
They've opened.
okay.
So, I mean, they're moving forward.
Yeah, he said it was going to be a very slow process, so, but I just didn't know if you had anything additional to that.
No, I haven't heard of anything else going in down there, but I'll be happy to pass along if we do.
The old Kmart, is that doing anything?
The quilting shop that's on Hopkins is moving into the mall.
Okay.
In the
Kathy's Quilting.
Searstown?
Yes. She's moving in, she'll be open there in beginning of August.
Cool.
In terms of the former Kmart on Cheney Highway, we are, our staff is reviewing proposals to convert that still into indoor climate-controlled storage, and the intent is to have at least one, if not two, out parcels in the majority of the rest of the parking that won't be needed for the storage use.
Are they going to do anything with the old hotel where Ellie and Cita used to be?
They have active building permits on that property. They're slowly working on it. I don't have an expected date of completion for you on that.
And lastly, are they still doing the Harley Davidson at the?
Yeah, it's under
Titusville
construction right now. I believe the concrete tilt walls are up last time I was there, but they are moving forward on that. Yeah, and there is a new edition of Titusville Talking Points available online. It just came out, so there should be some updates in there as well for the other stuff going on in town.
The old Quam Schoolhouse is reopening, and there's a new Vietnamese deli on Hopkins also.
Okay. So I want to bring up the video. I saw that video too, and I thought it was very odd because one of the first things that I heard him say was how he was having difficulties. Did you hear that with the city on getting the events going? And I thought, well, wait a minute. I mean, I watched them come up, and it was slam dunk here. I thought it was a slam dunk at city council, and I feel like the city has been extremely working with them, but it was like did you hear that? Yeah. Okay. So I thought it's so easy to put that out there, and yet if you know and people believe that, of course it's on Facebook, but people believe that, and then that's the perception that the town has, not knowing the truth that I mean, it's not like I feel like we did anything special for them. They came in, they asked, we said yes. Yeah, I mean, so what didn't you get that you didn't ask for? And so it's kind of insulting a bit.
I didn't watch the whole video, but I thought he was saying that people were, not the city, but that people in town were suggesting that nobody's going to rent that big of a space here in town. That's what I took away from it, but I wasn't paying that close of attention, to be clear, and I didn't watch the whole thing, so I don't know what else he said.
Okay. Well, I mean, I wish him the best of luck. I really do. I mean, I would hate to. That's a huge piece of property. So, and I don't have anything, but I did. Chelsea, can I talk to you after this meeting? And so we're adjourned.